Hello, and welcome to the maiden voyage of Breast Friends. I'm here today with my friend Vivian Shapiro, who plays a very important role in the story I'm about to tell, and I will introduce her again in a few moments. To begin with, I thought I would tell you about Ellen Hermanson because I am the co-founder and chair of the Ellen Hermanson Foundation, which is really what this is all about. So my story begins many years ago in 1952 when my sister Ellen was born in Brookline, Massachusetts. We moved to Belmont, Massachusetts, grew up there. My sister was kind of a quirky, serious, funny little girl who grew up into a quirky, serious, funny adult woman. Ellen went to Connecticut College and she majored in anthropology. Following college, she went to Connecticut College, and following Connecticut College, she went to Columbia to the Mideast Institute to get a master's degree in Middle East Studies. During her junior year in college, she went to Israel for a semester, and that was life-changing for her. Following her program at Columbia, she went to NYU to the School of Journalism because Ellen decided that she could be more effective as a journalist. NYU was really important because there she met a tall, dashing young man named Hugo Sanchez Moreno. She was wildly in love with him. He was wildly in love with her, and they married in 1985. Jump ahead 3 years. In August 1988, they had their beautiful daughter, Leora. And there is a picture on the table that maybe you can zoom into, please, that shows Ellen with her daughter, Leora, which is right over here. So that is Ellen and her daughter Leora, who's now actually a mother herself. And so Ellen had this beautiful child, Leora, in 1988. Leora is a Hebrew name that actually means my light. And Ellen was wildly happy. She was totally in love with Hugo. She was in love with her baby. Everything was fine, except it wasn't fine because the baby wouldn't nurse on one and had a difficult time nursing on one of her breasts. Ellen would call the doctor and say, there's something wrong, the baby won't nurse. And the doctor would say, nursing is a little bit difficult. It takes time to get the hang of it. And you might have a blocked milk duct. There was always something. And finally, in February of 1989, I think because they were tired of listening to her, they brought her into Lenox Hill. She came into Lenox Hill, had a biopsy, and was told she had breast cancer. And that was the beginning of an extraordinary journey for Ellen's own life, to save her life, for me to spend time with her child, and to learn so much more than I ever wanted to know about breast cancer. Ellen did not survive. She died in 1995 after a valiant 6-year battle. And this is where our guest today, Vivian Shapiro, comes in, because I met Vivian a year after Ellen died. I had just finished my doctoral program at Columbia University, and I actually, truth be told, I was intimidated to meet Vivian because her reputation preceded her. Vivian has been a social activist her whole life and has an arm's length worth of accomplishments, starting with the Human Rights Campaign and more, an uncommon legacy for lesbian women. She's done so much. I was intimidated to meet this very powerful woman that my sister-in-law, Ellen Ratner, wanted me to meet. But I met you, and we met at a little cafe across from the Museum of Natural History. And I have different recollections of how Ellen's run started, and that's really the antecedent to everything that we do. So what is your recollection?
Well, it was a bizarre thing. I didn't know you at all.
Correct.
Ellen Ratner said, would you meet my sister-in-law? Her sister died. She wants to honor her. Maybe you could help me. Do a fundraiser. Blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, I'll go meet her. And it was right near my house, the
Right.
Museum Cafe. And we sat down. And I don't know how we got warm so quickly. It's like this conversation. We were two strangers.
Correct.
And we connected immediately. Maybe over Ellen's story. I always wished I had gotten to know Ellen. But you said to me, I want to honor my sister. And is this how you remember?
I said, I remember it a little differently
Okay,
because
can you-
I remember telling you about Ellen
Right.
because she was so remarkable, and telling you about Ellen, and I thought you said you need to honor her.
Oh,
And I had been trying to think of, I did want to honor her, but I didn't know what to do. And I said, you're right. I want to honor her, and I don't know what to do. And you said,
I said to you, what do you like to do? And Julie said she likes to run. She's a runner. She does marathons.
right.
And I said, okay, so let's do a run. Now, obviously, I'm not a runner. I know nothing about running. She never ran a marathon or an organization in
Exactly.
the same level. And here we are. We said, okay, we're going to do a run. This was in April. We're going to do a run this summer in the Hamptons, which was certifiably insane.
Everyone
So you
told
had
us.
lost your father.
Right, my father died 10 months after Ellen.
I mean, you
And
were
2
suffering
months
from a
after
lot of
that,
love.
my husband said he was leaving.
And in the middle of it, while we were trying to, you had to defend your doctorate. So it's April, we're doing a run, she's defending her doctorate, she's mourning her sister and father, rightly so, and mourning the loss of her marriage. And we have 2 months to make a run.
We
And it
did it.
happened.
Everyone thought we were crazy. There were
We
so
were
many
crazy.
naysayers. My mother said, you don't know what you're doing. And I said, that never stopped me before.
Exactly. I mean, I believe if you have Julie had the right message. We had to do something to make the life of a woman who was diagnosed with breast cancer easier on the East End, because it was horrible. There was no access to services. I mean, all services were coming back to New York. All the money was in
They
New York, so
were.
local people
The
just had no access.
Southampton Hospital did not have a breast center. What Southampton Hospital had was they had a mammography machine, but it was part of the radiology department, and it was spread out. There was nothing contained there. And we realized, you and I both realized, that the Hamptons has a reputation of being so wealthy, full of famous people, that there's no need for services. So many people said to me, why are you doing this in the Hamptons? It's the richest place in the world. And you and I both said, look around. Who's in your garden? Who's in the
Right.
kitchen? The Hamptons are not wealthy. There are wealthy people who summer and vacation here. The backbone of this extraordinary community is not wealthy.
And I mean, back then, when we're talking in the mid-90s,
1996.
the Hamptons was farmers, baymen, Bonnickers. That's what it was. And then there were the folks who came for 2 months. There was very few people staying during the winter at that time.
Right.
It was really a summer community. And all the money raised here, which got me crazy,
Went
every
right out.
summer went right back to New York. It was the American Heart Association used to have a big event, the Hayground School. I mean, we can go over Sloan Kettering, every major institution.
Correct.
And the money left. And why did it leave? Because the people going to those fundraisers, who were fortunately very well heeled, they used those institutions in New York.
Deep pockets.
So these deep pockets were funding what they would fund in New York. And they never turned around and thought, what about the people who make our life so good here?
And that's Ellen's brilliance, because as sick as Ellen was, and God knows she was so sick, she understood and always felt she had a mission to educate other women about the importance of breast health care, about access to care. She was very concerned about pain management. She always said, I feel like I'm the Miss Manners of breast cancer, because I feel like I have to tell the doctor, how they should treat us. She said the nurses were much better. The nurses got it. And pain management wasn't what it is now, where they say, what is your pain on a scale of 1 to 10? It was a very different experience. And Ellen said to me once, she said, people in my position don't have time to have our lives compromised by pain. And the thing that some of us fear the most is the pain. And she lived with horrific pain. One of the last things she did before she really became homebound was she went to Washington and gave a speech. She was the second speaker after Sandra Day O'Connor at a cancer event. And she spoke about one patient's pain. It was her experience with pain. I want to say that in her lifetime, as her disease got worse, Ellen used her diminishing time and energy for 2 things. One, to always make sure her daughter knew that she was loved and taken care of. Ellen would call from the hospital every day and say, here's the drill, Leora. This is what you wear to school. This is lunch. This is who's picking you up. This child never worried about her. And there was always someone there from the family to take care of her. The second thing that she did is she used her time. She became one of the 4 founders of the Jewish Healing Center, which is now a national organization. She became an editor of the Outstretched Arm, which is part of the Jewish Healing Center. She wrote their newsletter. She became the founding executive director of Judges and Lawyers Breast Cancer Alert. And she
Which
worked,
still
it
exists.
still exists, and she worked on a national cancer organization, and I'm forgetting the name, but they had a periodical called The Networker, and she published and edited their journal, The Networker. Until the very end, she was involved and understood the need to reach out to people, most especially women who are medically underserved, which is where we took our mission originally,
Totally.
which was to reach out to underserved communities of women about the importance of mammography, breast health care, and access.
Well, firstly, they didn't have money. Secondly, they didn't have time, the people we were serving.
Correct.
They were working. I mean, and thirdly, something that I learned from you, and obviously in the retelling, from Ellen, is that breast cancer is not a woman's disease. It's a family disease.
Exactly.
Everybody's involved. The children are involved. The other parent or guardian is involved. I mean, it's an overwhelming thing for the entire household. And back then, survival rates weren't as good as they were now.
No, and this,
And so you were looking, and I want to come back just 1 second.
Sure,
to pain.
please.
When you are in pain, as Ellen was, and it wasn't managed, you are losing precious moments with your children.
Right.
In order to live as long as you can live and be part of your life, your pain has to be controlled. If it's not controlled, everything else goes.
The other thing that pain does is it whittles away at your sense of wellness and sense of well-being. It's scary. Pain becomes scary because when it is at such a high level that is debilitating, and the only way you can control it is with horrible pills. I will never become addicted to Oxycontin or Oxycodone because it made me so sick. And it diminished.
Some days you won't become addicted. There's a case.
I know.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Julie,
it's just
for that
it was the most
information.
horrible drug I ever
Right.
had to take, and
Killed a lot of people.
I know it's terrible. It's a horrible drug, but your mood, your whole affect in being changes when the pain is terrible. I saw it with Ellen, and it wasn't so terrible that I experienced it because it gave me a sense of what other people experience and go through, and that's important to know. It was important for me to know.
I think something that we could preface in this. I believe when I met you, I had just had lung cancer.
Right.
And I understood pain because I had a lobe removed and ribs broken, and a little like Ellen, I was a fighter. I fought to be well because I had just adopted a child.
Right.
It's very much Ellen's story, who was like not even a year old. And here I was I going to live to see her at 5?
Exactly.
I'm sure that tormented Ellen and torments tons of women.
I think it does. I would say Ellen was extraordinary in that she never said, woe is me and why me and it's unfair. What she said she might have said that to her therapist, not to me. She was not happy. She wanted to see Leora grow up. She said to me once, this friend is becoming an editor. This friend is now chair of a department of Columbia. She said, what do I? She said, I do breast cancer. And I said, and your job is the most important of all.
Mm-hmm.
And someday you're going to be old and I'm going to be old. We'll sit on a rocking chair. I'll tell you all the secrets I could never tell you when you were too young. I wanted to always be hopeful. I sort of just lost track of my thought because you were talking about, but what she wanted the most of all, I got the thought back, is to see Leora grow up.
Of course.
See what kind of a person she would become, what her life would be. And so
And she's an extraordinary person.
I was going to say, I'm going to jump ahead for a minute. Leora is 35 now, maybe? She is a public defender in Charlotte. She has a little girl of her own, Alma, and her middle name is Eliana for Ellen. And, I feel like Ellen was robbed. She didn't see Leora grow into this beautiful, talented, smart, committed, dedicated woman. And she doesn't see this cute little feisty girl.
So I'm not a religious person, and I'm not barely I'm a spiritual person, but I absolutely know she sees it. This
Right.
I know. I know that she's watched Leora grow up, and she was there smiling. And she was at the wedding, and she was at Leora's bat mitzvah.
Do you
She
remember
was
that?
there, yes, and she was there all the time, and she knows this little grandchild. She just knows her. I mean, that I believe. If we want to go back to the run,
I was going to go back to the run, thank you, because we started that first run. We should just tell everyone that first run was a huge success.
right, maybe we started having our meetings in
I think
May.
Memorial Day weekend.
Right, Memorial Day
1996.
weekend, and we did the run in July or August.
It was
I think.
August. I think the second or third Saturday in August.
And we had how many runners? 600?
500, 100 children, 400 adults. Everyone told us we would fail, that we would be lucky to make $1,000 after we paid expenses.
Well, we had a lot of volunteer work, right?
But we knew nothing. I didn't know that I needed a permit.
Right. Well, we managed to get all that.
We got it all done.
And we got the word out. And I think it touched people's hearts that it was for breast cancer. And I think it even touched people's hearts that the money, every penny, was staying here.
Exactly. And that's what it did. And that was the beginning of our collaboration with the hospital, which was very important. And then in 2000, so right after the first run, we incorporated and became the Ellen Hermanson Foundation, a
Right.
501c3. My sister.
We weren't a 501c3 for the
Not
run?
right. Remember, your foundation, Uncommon Legacy,
Was
was
the
the fiscal
receiver.
receiver.
I didn't even remember that.
They were
Yeah.
the fiscal receiver. And then my sister Lee did all the legal work so that we became incorporated into a 501c3. And then
It grew very quickly over the
then-
next 2 years.
we definitely grew. The third year, the summer of the third Ellen's run, we added a gala and we honored Carol Baldwin at that first gala. And we grew and we started to focus. We honed our focus so that we always realized that Southampton Hospital had to have the technology and equipment to make it comparable to a Sloan Kettering or a large teaching hospital, so that women who live in our community don't have to go west to get state-of-the-art
Well,
care.
let's go back to what we did with our original Little Monies. I mean, it's hard. For those of you watching this, it's probably hard for you to conceive that a woman who was getting treatment had to go to Stony Brook, and she neither had a car or was fit to drive herself. So if we could, we found people who drove her, but we paid for taxis.
Absolutely,
We
had,
paid so that people could get to their treatment.
well, we gave gas cards.
Gas cards,
You know-
exactly. It was a struggle. I mean, the reach to the women of this community and the women of the reservation.
Absolutely.
Julie was here to serve those who needed and those who really weren't identified and those who more or less would get later diagnoses because they didn't have money to go get a mammography. I don't even know it was Stony Brook giving them
It was Southampton Hospital then. And two things happened.
You know how many lives you saved? Let's look at it this way. How many lives did you save over all these years?
I think not me, you and everyone who's been part of this.
How much is the foundation?
The foundation has raised well over $6 million. And so, with the exception of the $5,000 that goes to New York every year for the Ellen Hermanson Symposium at Judges and Lawyers Breast Cancer Alert, all of it stays here. So, for example, this year, the foundation gave out $363,000 in grants. Of that, $358,000 stay here in this community, with the $5,000 going to Judges and Lawyers Breast Cancer Alert.
And you were really the first to become a local foundation serving the community. I mean, there are many now. It's changed,
But we
Not even that many.
No, but we realized that it was so important, and breast cancer is ubiquitous out here.
Mhm.
I don't know because the figures change, but the rates of diagnosis and mortality are high. Many of the women we serve, I just want to, and then I'm going to go back in a minute. Many of the women we serve are the heads of families.
Mhm.
So not only do they work hard? They're the head. They have children. Some of them have children who have serious problems of their own. They don't have a checking account with God or with the National Trust. They work hard, 2, 3 jobs. It's very difficult, and we need support. And I just want to say that in 2008, at the very end of 2008, because I think this is important, Bob Challoner, who was then the CEO and president of Southampton Hospital, came to us on a day like today that was snowing and said, I have a proposition for you. And I said, well, we love propositions. He said, you build a self-contained breast center within Southampton Hospital, and we'll name it for Ellen. And I took it to the board. We were a little bit anxious about it because that was the year of the implosion, the financial implosion, where the market fell, housing fell, Bernie Madoff ruined a lot of people. And we thought, we have to do it. It's bricks and mortar. And we did it. We raised the money that we needed to raise. And then in August of 2009, the Ellen Hermanson Breast Center opened.
And I had a mammography 2 weeks ago there.
It was good, right?
Yes.
It's a beautiful. They tried to make it
Light.
spa-like and not a frightening place to be. Very very warm and gracious, soft colors, faux wood floors, nice little gowns.
Picture of Ellen.
The picture of Ellen. The picture of Ellen's in the breast center is right here on the table. We call it her Ingrid Bergman picture, where she's in Maine, and she looks she was Maine and Arizona were her 2 favorite places in America. She loved the Southwest. She loved Native American culture, and she loved Maine. When she was a little girl, my parents took her to Maine every summer while my other sister and I were at camp, and they went to a place called Quisisana, which is still around in Maine. And it changed. It formed Ellen in many ways, with her love of nature, the out of doors, her appreciation for the beauty of Maine. So that's Ellen's. And that's the picture that's in the breast center.
So what's going on now?
So I just want to say what's going on now. So we built the breast center, and it opened. And we had because this is, I think, significant, Viv. When Bob came to us, we said we have only 2 requirements. We're happy to do this. No woman is ever turned away because she has no insurance, or she's underinsured, or she's not legal. That we take everyone. Second, figure out how to marry the rigor of a teaching hospital with the warmth and comfort of a community facility. And they did it.
And you also started the wellness center.
We didn't do the wellness center. We started Ellen's Well in 2000 with Edel O'Brien, who's our full-time licensed clinical social worker. And she works full-time. She facilitates groups, and she does individual counseling, end-of-life counseling. I always think Edel's our hidden magic person. She's like a wise woman.
How would a woman now who is suffering and needs counseling reach out to Edel here? How could you reach her?
She can certainly reach her through us.
The Ellen Hermanson Foundation.
Ellen Hermanson Foundation, right? Exactly. It's ellenhermanson.org. Absolutely. And also, the breast center has a full-time outreach coordinator, patient navigator and outreach coordinator. It has a full-time breast surgeon director. We've done so much. I belabor things. I just want to say, during COVID, it was a wonderful time in some ways, in most ways, an awful time. We revisited our mission and what we do, and we switched gears a little bit, and we created a community partnership with 4 organizations where we feel the women who are part of these organizations are on the margins, in the medical margins. So we have a partnership with OLA, which is the Hispanic organization, the Bridgehampton Child Care and Recreational Center.
Where there's going to be a health fair this Saturday.
Tomorrow, yes.
If you want to have cancer screening, go over between 11 and 3.
Yep, and we'll have someone there who can help you arrange your appointment.
It's on
Bridgehampton Sag Harbor Turnpike. We also have a partnership with the Shinnecock Indian Health Services, and we're working with the women on the reservation. And we have a partnership with the Retreat. And these are all women who live on the margins, who are economically challenged, who have so many challenges in their life. And we certainly know, and they say at the Retreat, for a woman who's leaving an abusive relationship and has so much on her plate, the last thing she thinks about is her own health.
Of course.
And if you don't have your own health, you can't be present for your children or your family or your job or anything.
Well, to take some point for these entire group of people, their diagnosis comes too late.
Exactly.
If they were getting mammographies yearly, would you offer them, whether this costs or not?
Yes. We spoke at the retreat last week, and it was so interesting. If you live in this world of breast cancer, or you're around this, what we take for granted is not for granted. It's like when you have a class of kids coming into first grade, they don't know how to read, even though the class that just left does. You have to start over all the time. Education is a process, a continuation, and it has to keep happening over and over
And
again.
there's this belief, and there's this belief in youth that, not me. It's not going to happen to me. Could I just tell a little story, because I realize the time is
Yes,
going on.
please tell a story.
We have a shared friend, Noemi. Her sister is a doctor at Bellevue's been forever. She was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer, and thank God she survived. But they all tested, and they all had the BRCA gene. So then Noemi, and this is when you have the money to do this. So many people we serve have no money to get the information. Noemi also had the BRCA gene, and she had surgery. Her sister Michelle's daughter is 35 and has the BRCA gene, and had a little girl. And now she's pregnant with a little boy, who she will have a cesarean and have her ovaries removed at the same time.
Does the child have the BRCA gene?
That this 2-year-old gorgeous baby girl has the BRCA gene. So it's not like cancer's going away or disappoint,
And that's but knowledge.
And this is a whole family who did it right. They removed their ovaries. They did the things they had to do.
Because they had the knowledge, and that's where we come in. And the educational component never stops. And we're working because there is a genetic counselor, and we need more genetic counseling. And by the
Genetic
way,
testing.
exactly. This little boy can also carry the BRCA gene.
Correct.
My dad carried the BRCA gene, and that's how Ellen had it. So I see we have a little bit more than a minute. And so what I want people to take away from our maiden voyage is that the Ellen Hermanson Foundation is part of this community. We're here to stay, and that we serve the community. No one is turned away from the Ellen Hermanson Breast Center for lack of insurance. We welcome phone calls. We want people to call us, because if you don't, we can't serve you and we can't help you.
And you were important to us as community members.
Right.
You make this life as important as we make this life. It is you who add richness and flavor to this place we live.
It's a beautiful community, and I always owe everything so much to you, Vivian. This wouldn't have happened without you, really.
Thank
This
you.
whole thing would never have happened, and obviously to Ellen, because she still inspires me every day. Not an hour goes by that I don't think about her still, and she's the inspiration for what I do. It gives her short life on this earth more meaning, and more people know
She's
who
on
she
your
was.
shoulder now. She
Okay.
wants to give you a
Hello,
little
Ellen.
kiss to thank you.
So, in the
Because this would be her mission.
it would be her mission. And so, welcome to our maiden launch. We will see you again in the future, and we'll continue the conversation. So, have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.